My name is Dr. Willie James Jennings. I teach theology and Africana studies at Yale University. And it is a great joy for me to be here with you and to participate in this Faith and Finance Conference, Church Economics, Remembering Our Mission. The matters we are considering here are not only timely, they are urgent. Discussions about money and economy and finance are at the heart of everything right now. Those discussions show a moral vision for the world that is either crumbling or being created. And it's precisely the creation of a moral vision for the world that I want to consider with you for a few moments. Most of the churches I have attended over the years had a ritual they performed after receiving the morning offering from the congregation. We would all stand and sing the words, "All things come of thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee." And then we would sing the Amen. I am sure most of you know this ritual and probably engage in it yourself. But the ritual points to a truth that is not normally part of the consciousness of most Western Christians. And it comes down to one crucial word: possession. Possession. The simple but elegant idea at the heart of that churchly chant is that God, the creator of all, holds all things together and thereby possesses everything. We live inside the possessive reality of God. We share with all creation this reality of being possessed. This simple idea in ancient biblical Israel meant that the people of God always understood that the land itself and the animals watched them, monitoring their faithfulness to God and their covenantal consistency. Ancient Israel knew that they were possessed by God and possessed by the gaze of the ground. The plants and animals, mountains and trees watched and reacted to their actions. As Leviticus 18:24 through 28 states, that if Israel visited its iniquity upon the land and the animals, the earth itself would vomit them out, as it had vomited out the peoples that were there before them. God made covenant not only with the people, but with the land itself. God remembers the people and God remembers the land. So says Leviticus 26, and passages in Numbers and Deuteronomy say the same. Israel understood that it was possessed on two sides. God on one side, announcing divine claim, and the land and the animals on the other side, echoing that claim, pressing that claim through every bite of food, every drink of water, and every deep breath taken in. This simple idea drowned in the colonial waters as European Christians settled into new worlds with a profoundly distorted understanding of possession. The invading European Christians saw themselves in possession of the world, this new world. They saw possession through break, separation, enclosure. Native groups, on the other hand, saw possession through continuum, connection, and overlap. They understood themselves to be possessed by the land, by animals, by water and plant. For them, their possession of followed from their sense of being possessed by. But for the Christian coming to take this land. They understood their position, their possession, their possession to be sanctioned by God. Full stop. Because they had come to believe that to cultivate a place, to make a space productive, gave them the right of possession. Ironically, Native peoples, indigenous peoples gave witness to a biblical sensibility that Christian colonialists had abandoned in the feverish greed of possession. And my friends, that fever has never broken. We yet live in a distorted vision of possession, one rooted in isolated and isolating visions of ownership. What do I mean by that? Isolated and isolating visions of ownership. Two things. First, the colonialists believed that God had given them the new worlds to possess in order to bring the new worlds to maturity, to full maturity. The colonialists were convinced they knew best what to do with the world, with land, with plants, with animals, with the landscape, and with indigenous peoples. How best to steward the world's development. Their deliberations and calculations, as far as they were concerned, did not need the knowledge, the wisdom, or the voices of indigenous peoples, or especially not the land itself or the animals. How can land and animals give wisdom? Their vision of possession, that is, the European colonialist vision of possession, silenced the world. And it was a racial silencing, as non-white bodies were silenced. Second, the colonialists envisioned the land inside the market instead of seeing the market inside the land. The reality of a market where people trade and buy and share the good gifts of the earth, recounting to each other the growth journeys of their crops, was replaced by the dream of a market that could make some rich and increase their power. The transatlantic market, soon to become the global market, the transatlantic market, soon to become the global market, would dictate what the land should be used for, what the people would be good for, and what life would be permitted. This dreaming, this terrible dreaming, is yet with us, yielding a horrible nightmare that too few of us even see as a nightmare. These are the colonialist seeds that have yielded an isolating vision of possession. On the one hand, that vision silences communal visions, communal deliberations of use or development or cultivation of anything and everything. And on the other hand, this vision renders us silent in the face of market forces and economic engines. When it comes to markets and land and real estate and development and civil engineering and architecture, we Christians act like 19th century deists who believe that God dropped the world as possession into our hands and simply walked away. And while God was walking away, God said, let the bankers and the markets, the finance people and the economists work out the details of life. What must be done? Many things must be done. But I have time to only point to one thing. We must rethink what possession means for us. Challenge the idea of the private in property and challenge individualistic sensibilities in ownership that teach us to ignore the ramifications of the buying and selling of property, the buying and selling of land, the buying and selling of anything. Here is the question for us. Can we, in listening to our indigenous sisters and brothers, our native siblings, enter into a deeper sense of accountability to the places we inhabit? Can we begin our deliberations about money and finance by asking who is missing from this conversation and the decision making that will affect so many people? There is a vision of the commons that yet calls out to us for embodiment, for a living witness bound to the living God. It is one that builds from indigenous visions of the commons, where people know that they live in the logic of sharing. The logic of sharing, a logic that calls forth a kind of reciprocity with animals and plants and seasons and people, each requiring attentiveness and respect. This logic of sharing throws nothing away and throws no one away because it lives in the truth of that chant. All things come from thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee.